Beyond the Gates spoilers for Tuesday, October 7, 2025 tease that Bill's world is starting to crack in ways he never imagined. On the surface, he seems like a man with everything under control: a steady job, a loyal wife, and a home that feels like the embodiment of quiet success. But lately, something inside him has changed. The change is subtle at first: a wandering mind, a sudden distraction at dinner, the feeling that a shadow has latched onto him and won't let go. That shadow has a name: Danny. Bill tells himself it's harmless, that the tension between them is just nostalgia dressed in new skin. Danny had been a friend once, someone from the office who always knew how to make ordinary moments feel charged. But now, her presence hums through him like static. She brushes past him in the hallway, her laughter lingering, and suddenly he's caught between impulse and restraint. He tries to dismiss it, to pretend that the pull he feels is nothing more than imagination, but it clings to him like smoke. Haley, his wife, notices before he says a word. She sees it in the way he hesitates when she touches his arm, in the way his eyes drift somewhere else when she talks about weekend plans. At first, she blames the stress from work. But stress doesn't explain the silence in his eyes, the kind that suggests he's listening to another voice entirely, one that whispers his name when he's half asleep. Danny doesn't need to say much to unsettle him. Her gestures are calculated, almost delicate, but they carry an intent he can't ignore. Every accidental touch feels deliberate, every lingering glance feels like a dare. She's not overtly seductive, she's patient. She knows exactly how to stand close enough that he can smell her perfume but not close enough to make it inappropriate. It's a cruel kind of artistry, the kind that leaves Bill unsteady and ashamed of how easily he falls under her spell. One evening, it happens the moment that tips everything off balance. Danny stops by his office after hours, under the pretext of finishing a report. The building is empty, quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. She hands him a file, their fingers brushing, and the look that passes between them feels like a silent confession. When she leans in to whisper something about the report, he can feel her breath against his neck. He turns, and before he knows it, their lips meet. It's brief, impulsive, but it feels like the release of something that's been building for months. When they break apart, reality floods in fast and merciless. Bill steps back, guilt already crushing his chest. Danny doesn't look apologetic. If anything, she looks satisfied, as if she's finally proven something she'd known all along. That night, Bill can't sleep. The weight of what happened presses down on him, heavy and suffocating. Haley lies beside him, her breathing steady, unaware that his mind is miles away. He tells himself he has to fix this to prove that he's still the man she trusts. So he decides he'll make it up to her, not with words but with the kind of closeness that might erase the distance that's grown between them. The next evening, he tries. He approaches her gently, with the tenderness of a man desperate to reconnect. He tells her she means everything to him, that he is sorry for being distant. Haley, tired of feeling ignored, wants to believe him. But when he touches her, something feels off. It's not passionate guilt disguised as affection. She feels it in the hesitation of his hands, the way he seems to be chasing someone else's ghost through her body. The moment collapses. What should have brought them closer only drives them further apart. Haley pulls away, anger breaking through her confusion. "You think this fixes it?" she says, voice sharp with disbelief. "You don't even know how to be with me anymore." The words hit him harder than she expects. He stumbles back, ashamed, humiliated. The last thing he sees before leaving the room is the disappointment on her face, a look that tells him she's not angry because he failed, but because she knows he's already gone somewhere she can't reach. Outside, the night feels colder than usual. Bill walks without direction, trying to clear his head. But all he can think of is the way she looked at him after the kiss, the way her voice lingered like a secret he wasn't supposed to hear. He hates that he wants to see her again. He hates that part of him already knows he will. Back home, Haley sits on the edge of the bed, staring into the dark. Her anger slowly shifts into something else, a deep, twisting suspicion. The image of Danny flashes through her mind. She's seen the way Danny looks at Bill before. that faint smirk that carries too much confidence. It wasn't just her imagination. Haley realizes that Danny's been circling him for months, maybe longer. The thought makes her pulse quicken with fury. The next day, she doesn't wait for an explanation. She drives to Danny's office, her resolve burning hotter with each passing minute. When Danny opens the door, she looks surprised but only for a moment. Then a slow smile curves her lips, like she's been expecting this. "Stay away from my husband," Haley says, her tone clipped and controlled. Danny leans against the desk, unbothered. "Your husband?" she echoes softly. "Funny. He doesn't seem like the kind of man who wants to be kept." The insult is subtle but sharp enough to draw blood. Haley's composure wavers. "You have your own husband now. Focus on him, Danny. Whatever you think is happening with Bill attends now." Danny's eyes flash with amusement. "Oh, Haley, you really think I'm the reason he's slipping away from you? Maybe you should ask yourself why he keeps thinking about me instead." The words are designed to hurt, and they do. Haley's face tightens with rage. She wants to slap the smirk off Danny's face but stops herself. Instead, she turns sharply and walks out, her heart pounding with humiliation and fear. When Danny is alone again, her smile fades just a little. There's something bitter in her satisfaction. She tells herself this is justice, a small revenge for what she once endured, because there was a time when Danny was the one who felt unwanted, the one who watched someone she loved choose another woman. Now, she's the one holding the power, and she intends to use it. Later that evening, Danny picks up her phone and calls Bill. Her voice is calm, almost playful. "Guess who stopped by today?" she says. Bill freezes when he hears Haley's name. Danny tells him about the confrontation, leaving out none of the cutting remarks. "She's angry, Bill," she says softly. "But maybe she should be. You and I both know what really happened in that office." He doesn't know what to say. The sound of her voice pulls him back to that moment, to the heat of the kiss, to the confusion that followed. He feels trapped between two realities, one built on guilt and the other on desire. Danny senses his silence and presses further. "You don't have to pretend," she murmurs. "I know you think about me. I can feel it." Bill wants to deny it, to hang up, but he can't. There's something magnetic about her certainty. Danny doesn't just tempt him, she understands him in a way that terrifies him. When the call ends, he sits in the dark for a long time, trying to convince himself that he is still in control. Meanwhile, Haley's frustration grows. The argument with Danny replays in her mind, but what haunts her most is the calmness in Danny's tone, the quiet confidence of someone who knows she's already won. Haley starts to question everything: her marriage, her worth, her ability to keep Bill's attention. For the first time, she wonders if the problem isn't Danny at all, but the cracks that have been forming between her and Bill for years. Bill, on the other hand, begins to withdraw further. He avoids eye contact with Haley, spends longer hours at work, tells himself he just needs space. But space only leaves room for Danny to fill. Her messages start arriving late at night, short, suggestive, never enough to say anything outright but always enough to stir something inside him. He tells himself it's harmless, but deep down, he knows it isn't. Every message is a thread pulling him closer to the edge. One Friday evening, Danny invites him to a bar near the office under the pretense of celebrating a small work victory. He knows he should refuse, but his willpower has worn thin. When he arrives, she's already there, dressed simply but with a kind of effortless confidence that makes everyone in the room glance her way. The conversation starts light, filled with laughter and half-truths, but beneath it all runs a current of unspoken tension. As the night drifts on, Danny starts to speak more honestly. She tells him she doesn't regret the kiss, that it only revealed what was already there. "You can keep pretending, Bill," she says, her voice low, "but I see the truth in your eyes. You're not done with me." He doesn't respond, but she doesn't need him to. The silence says enough. When he finally leaves, the air feels heavy with everything they didn't say. Back home, Haley is waiting. She's not angry, at least, not openly. She's quiet, controlled, the kind of calm that's more dangerous than rage. She asks him where he's been, and he lies without even realizing it. "Just work stuff," he says. She nods but doesn't believe him. That night, when he reaches for her, She turns away. The space between them feels wider than ever. The next few weeks blur together in a haze of tension and secrets. Dani begins to play a more dangerous game. She's seeing another man, and she knows it complicates things. But that's part of the appeal. She's built her life around control, and now she's testing how far she can push it. Andre senses her restlessness and confronts her one night. "You keep playing with fire," he warns. "One day, someone's going to get burned." She smiles faintly. Maybe that's the point. Eventually, Dani and Andre strike an unusual deal. They agree to give each other freedom to see whomever they want, so long as they remain honest about it. For Dani, it's liberation disguised as love. For Andre, it's resignation. He is still clinging to someone else, a woman named Ashley, whose absence still lingers in his life like unfinished business. For Dani, the arrangement means she can continue her dangerous stance with Bill without guilt. But guilt, she soon realizes, isn't something that can be bargained away. It always finds its way back. And Bill, caught between temptation and remorse, feels his life unraveling thread by thread. He starts to see Dani not as a woman but as a reflection of something darker in himself, the part that wants to escape, to feel alive again, even if it means losing everything. Haley senses that he's slipping further out of reach. She tries to confront him, but he avoids the conversation every time. The more she pushes, the deeper he retreats. At work, Dani watches all of it unfold from a distance, satisfied yet restless. She tells herself she's not to blame, that Bill made his own choices. But late at night, when she's alone, she catches herself thinking about the look in his eyes, the mix of guilt, longing, and confusion. It's the same look she once had when she was the one left behind. The lines between revenge and desire blur until she can no longer tell the difference. And somewhere deep inside, both Dani and Bill know that the path they've chosen can only lead to one place, a reckoning neither of them is ready to face. Bill wakes the next morning with a sense of weight he cannot name. The light feels foreign, too sharp, as if it's trying to expose something he's been hiding. The silence in the house tells him Haley left early. No note, no kiss on the cheek, just the empty space of avoidance. It's becoming a pattern, one he knows he caused. But even as guilt gnaws at him, another presence lingers in his mind. Dani. Always Dani. He tells himself he's done with her, that he's made enough mistakes. Yet when his phone buzzes with a message from her, nothing more than a simple "thinking of you," the pull returns. It's not the words that undo him, it's the certainty that she knows exactly when to reach for him, like she can feel the tremor in his thoughts. At the office, their encounters grow harder to contain. A glance across a meeting room feels more dangerous than words. Dani's gaze doesn't linger long, but long enough to remind him of the line they've already crossed. And though they both pretend to be professionals, the air between them hums with something unresolved. Bill tries to bury himself in work, but distraction has become his second nature. Haley's distance at home mirrors his own. He wants to fix things, to make her see that he hasn't given up. But each time he looks at her, he feels the unspoken question in her eyes, "Are you still mine?" Haley begins to notice the changes not just in his silence but in his energy. He moves like a man haunted by someone who isn't in the room. When she talks, he listens with polite attention but no warmth. She starts staying late at the art studio, losing herself in paint and color, hoping to drown the ache of suspicion in creation. But even in the strokes of her brush, Dani's shadow intrudes. The memory of that smug smile, the cruel calm in her words, it festers. Dani, meanwhile, is navigating her own labyrinth. Her deal with Andre has given her freedom, but freedom without direction is a dangerous thing. Andre, always observant, sees the shifts in her. She's become colder, more deliberate, like a strategist in a game whose rules no one else understands. One evening, he asks her plainly, "Do you still love him?" She doesn't need to ask who him is. "Love?" she says after a pause. "No, but he remembers me." That's enough. Andre studies her quietly. "You're not just trying to be remembered, you're trying to win." The remark hits closer than she expects. Dani looks away, unwilling to admit that he's right. Andre is no fool, knows she's entangled in something volatile. Still, he keeps his promise. He doesn't question where she goes at night, Doesn't ask who she meets. Maybe part of him admires her for being so unapologetically alive, even when her choices border on destruction. Bill's restraint finally fractures one Friday evening. The rain is relentless, turning the city into a blur of reflections. He's the last to leave the office, or so he thinks, until he sees Danny standing by the elevator, her coat damp from the weather. She looks at him with that familiar half-smile, neither invitation nor rejection, just certainty. "I thought you'd gone home," he says. "I was waiting," she replies simply. He wants to ask why, but he already knows the answer. The tension between them feels almost scripted, like they've been moving toward this moment since the first spark months ago. When the elevator doors close, the silence between them is thick with everything unspoken. They don't kiss. They don't touch. They just stand there, the air heavy with awareness. But for Bill, that silence is louder than any confession. Later that night, Haley calls him. He answers, guilt flooding his throat. She doesn't accuse him, doesn't shout. She just says, "We can't keep pretending, Bill. Something's breaking, and I don't even know how to stop it." Her voice cracks, and for a moment, he feels the old love rise in him, tenderness that once anchored them. But when he tries to speak, the words come out hollow. "I just need time," he says, and even he doesn't believe it. Haley hangs up without another word. Danny hears about the call the next day. Bill tells her, maybe hoping for reassurance, but she only smirks. "You can't save something that's already gone," she says softly. "You should stop trying." Her words strike him, not because they're cruel, but because part of him knows she's right. He hates her for saying it, and he hates himself for believing it. Meanwhile, Haley's grief sharpens into resolve. She starts watching, listening, piecing together fragments that confirm what her heart already knows. A message left unsent, a glance caught too long, the faint scent of a perfume she doesn't own, each one a nail in the coffin of her trust. When she finally sees them together outside the office, a brief moment, nothing more than a passing conversation, it's enough. She doesn't confront them. She doesn't shout. She just stands there, watching from across the street, her heart breaking in quiet, deliberate silence. Danny feels her gaze first. She turns, sees Haley, and for a split second, something flickers in her eyes, guilt, maybe even pity, but it vanishes as quickly as it came. Haley leaves before Bill notices. That night, Haley packs a small bag and drives aimlessly for hours. She ends up at the edge of the city, near the old lake where she and Bill once went on their first trip together. The water is still, dark, endless. She sits on the hood of her car and lets the wind carry her thoughts away. There's no anger left, only the quiet ache of acceptance. She knows she's losing him, and maybe she already has. Back in the city, Danny meets Andre at a small restaurant. He watches her with a mix of affection and caution. "You look tired," he says. "Just thinking," she replies. "About him?" She doesn't answer. Instead, she takes a sip of wine, staring at her reflection in the glass. "Do you ever feel like we're all just repeating mistakes we swore we'd never make again?" Andre chuckles softly. "You make it sound poetic. But no, I just think we like the chaos." They share a quiet moment, an understanding between two people who have stopped pretending to be innocent. Days pass, and Bill begins to unravel in earnest. The guilt, the longing, the exhaustion, it all folds into one endless blur. Danny becomes both his refuge and his ruin. She feeds his self-doubt while making him feel desired, needed, alive. Every time he tries to pull away, she finds a way to draw him back, not through force, but through the illusion of comfort. Haley returns home after several days away. She finds Bill waiting, eyes weary, spirit dimmed. They sit across from each other in silence, the space between them heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, she speaks. "Do you love her?" The question hangs in the air. Bill opens his mouth but finds no answer. Not yes, not no, just silence. And that silence tells her everything she needs to know. She stands up slowly, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "Then you can have her. But you'll lose yourself too." She walks away before he can respond. For the first time, Danny feels no satisfaction when Bill shows up at her apartment that night. He looks hollow, like a man who's traded everything for a moment of clarity that came too late. She lets him in, But the energy between them has changed. It's no longer temptation, it's consequence. "Is this what you wanted?" he asks quietly. Danny hesitates. "I thought it was," she admits. "But now I'm not so sure." Andre's words echo in her mind. "You're not trying to be remembered. You're trying to win." And maybe that's true. But looking at Bill now broken, lost, she realizes that winning doesn't feel like victory. It feels like standing at the top of a tower she built herself, only to find there's no one left at the bottom. Over the next weeks, everything unravels. Haley files for separation, choosing peace over pain. Bill moves into a small apartment near the river, spending most nights staring at the city lights reflected in the water. Danny continues to see Andre, though their connection feels more like mutual survival than love. One evening, she visits Bill unannounced. He doesn't look surprised. They sit on the balcony, saying nothing for a long time. The city hums below them, indifferent to their shared ruin. Finally, Danny breaks the silence. "We keep chasing the wrong things," she says softly. "Maybe we always were." Bill nods, but he doesn't look at her. "Maybe," he says. "Or maybe we just forgot what the right things were." She watches him for a moment, realizing that whatever spell she once had over him has faded. The connection remains, but it's different, no less about desire, more about recognition. Two people who destroyed parts of themselves in pursuit of something they couldn't define. When she leaves that night, there are no promises, no lingering touches, just quiet understanding. Danny returns to Andre, who's waiting for her in silence. He doesn't ask where she's been. He doesn't need to. She sits beside him, resting her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in a long while, she allows herself to feel small, human, uncertain. Bill, alone in his apartment, writes Haley a letter he never sends. He tells her he's sorry not for the betrayal, but for forgetting who they were before everything went wrong. He folds the letter neatly, places it in a drawer, and turns off the light. As the city sleeps, the rain begins again, washing over the streets like a quiet absolution. Somewhere out there, Danny dreams of a life she'll never live. Andre stares at the ceiling wondering when love turned into endurance. And Haley finally sleeps without waking to the weight of doubt. None of them win. But in the quiet aftermath, there's a strange peace in knowing the game is finally over.